Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast, The Wire Remix, Season 1, Episode 5, The Pager. On this 26th of April, 2020, as always, I'm joined by one Robert Sapp, who is working overtime this week. Two podcasts in 3 days. Well, 4 days. Well, Friday, yeah, 2 in 3 days. So working a bit of overtime, he's good though. This episode 5 of The Wire, The Pager, it was directed by one Clark Johnson, who was busy this first season with directed at least three, maybe 4 episodes this season. I think this was his 3rd episode of the season. He directed the first 2. And I believe he did an episode at the end of the season, if I'm not mistaken. Vulture had it ranked 37th all time of Wire episodes. Very good episode, to say the least. A lot of moving pieces and some payoffs from some plots that had been developing over the course of the first 4 episodes, and a legit top 5 epigraph. A little slow, a little late. Avon Barksdale, one of my personal favorite epigraphs of the whole entire series, to be honest with you. So we open with Avon and Wee-Bey. Yet Avon is at a girl's apartment. He's just woken up. He's fully dressed. She's still in the bed. Phone rings. Then hangs up. Then the person who was on the phone hung up. She hangs up the phone. He asked who it was, and she said they hung up. And of course, at this point, you have to realize that Avon is in complete paranoid level 10. I mean, you have the stash house being robbed by Omar. You've had police in the pit. D'Angelo not arrested, but taken in by McNulty and Bunk. So a bunch of stuff has been popping off. At this point, Avon was at his, and of course, he got robbed by Omar. At this point, Avon he's fully paranoid at this point. So any little thing was going to set him off. So he goes in the car. First, he steps outside. He signals to Wee-Bey, who's in a Jeep or a truck, who's in a truck. He signals to Wee-Bey to go over and check out some of these young teenagers who, of course, we know pose no threat. But again, this is a paranoid Avon. They had some hockey sticks, or I wouldn't say hockey sticks, lacrosse sticks. And Wee-Bey just, has his gun ready, of course, and just goes past them and picks up Avon. They get in the car. Avon tells Wee-Bey, hey, I want these phones taken out of Shantae's apartment. That was the name of the young lady. And Wee-Bey, of course, is against it. And Avon, at first, Wee-Bey says something, and Avon just looks at him with I really have to repeat myself look. And then he says something else. And Wee-Bey blows out his mouth. And Avon's like, look, I got enemies and what have you. I don't want to use this phone. We used this phone yesterday. And, Wee-Bey is completely cool about it. He's just, through his eyes, he's wondering why Avon is this paranoid. That was
past careful.
Yes. Going past. Yes, we're past careful. That's what. Yes, we're going past careful with this. And Wee-Bey's words. Yeah. We're going past careful. And Avon's like, reminding him, like, look, man, I don't got no enemies. People ain't trying to get me. I'm a drug kingpin. So, and like I mentioned earlier, all this stuff has jumped off the last 2 to 3 episodes that lead to this. What were your thoughts on this opening scene?
Yeah, like you said, it just shows how much the game is having an impact on Avon right now. We see it from all different points of view with everybody else and how much they're coming after Avon, but he doesn't know what we know, but he can feel it, he can sense it. And so, yeah, he's just feeling it from every direction.
I also thought that this showed the difference in rank. Like, there's a certain mindset that a soldier has versus a general. So, Wee-Bey is ready for war at all times. The guy's gun ready, but he's not Weebay's not seeing the whole picture as far. Weebay it's not seeing the big picture. He just sees what's in front of him, and what's in front of him were two kids with hockey stick, with lacrosse stick. So he's like, whatever, we good. Avon, of course, is thinking about everything that's going that I talked about earlier, and now with this phone, somebody calling and hanging up, which probably wasn't nothing. So I think you saw a difference. I think, and I'm not saying Weebay was wrong. I just think you saw a difference between a general and a soldier.
Yeah. Weebay only has to take care of what's in front of him. Avon has to think 50 moves ahead.
No question about it. Next, we have, of course, Omar on the east side. He's with Brandon. And he's, Omar lets us know that east side, of course, is much easier to rob than west side. But even with that being said, Omar is still careful to come up with a game plan. He sets a trap for the dealers. And if you're going to be a drug dealer, it's probably not wise to be listening to your Walkman sitting on a stoop. It's probably not the move to have your Walkman and headphones on as Omar as anybody being in that particular position. So, of course, he sets a trap. They go for the trap. The cheese stands alone. One of a line that he would use over the course of this series, as you know, when we move along further throughout the course of seasons. And again, even in a situation where it seems to be easy money, you see the detail, you see how careful and how strategic one Omar Little is.
Yeah, he had everybody on the lookout so that he's never gonna definitely at this point he's never gonna get caught slipping. And so yeah, just like Avon has to be 50 steps ahead so that he can run his empire, because of the occupation that Omar is involved in, he has to be 50 steps ahead. Because to your point, Avon is saying, to your point about the epigraph, Avon is saying, how can you ever not be
low or late?
Yeah, slow or late. And Omar has to live by that exact same creed. He can't ever, because the time that he's going to be taken out. So he at this point in time, he's all the way there, all the way in control of the streets and everything around him, so that he can continue applying his trade.
And to your point about the epigraph, the young drug dealer who was on the corner listening to his Walkman was slow to see Omar.
Yep.
So that, that's a prime example of you are in this drug game. You gotta be, it's 24/7. There's no, you gotta be on point, ready for action at all times, which is, nearly impossible.
It's not even nearly. It's impossible. That was the point of that scene. In the epigraph, it is you're going to get got. It's just that simple.
So you have that happens. We go to the detail. The police, they are in the office. They are getting the affidavit signed by Judge Phelan to clone D'Angelo's pager, which was, again, a continuation of the previous episode. Any thought? I know that scene was kind of quick. Any thoughts on that with McNulty and the judge and what have you? And Perlman was there as well.
What did had McNulty already gone to the police department by that point in time?
No.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that was a little bit before. So it just sets the table, like to show how committed he's already committed to this detail, trying to get Avon. So it's just reiterating that, and then we'll see in a second, even in the face of getting something that you think he would want, it's all about getting his target. It's all about Avon.
Absolutely. So you have we go to the pit. You have Bodie, Poot, Wallace, D'Angelo. Now Wallace is off being a kid. He's playing with a transformer. Bodie and Poot talking about some girls, and D'Angelo comes into the conversation, and he was Jones on D'Angelo on Poot, or not Poot, but on Bodie, was messing around with him, and he looks over to sees Wallace. This is D'Angelo, and that it seems like he was happy to see Wallace enjoying being a child. So it seemed like in that moment he was happy. So you saw that on one hand, and then right after that, within 3 or 4 seconds, you saw the flip side. You see Bodie throw a bottle against a brick wall. It cracks Wallace in the head as far as the glass shatters on the bottle and cuts Wallace in the head, and Wallace, walks off, crying. And then Bodie, steps to, not Bodie, D'Angelo steps to Bodie, but doesn't do anything. Wallace had a cut on his face, and you see again, you saw this throughout the course of the first 5 episodes, and this is going to be a recurring theme: the difference between D'Angelo and Bodie, and their thoughts about what this life is, and their thoughts about just who they are. Again, I thought that the initial part of it with not Bodie, but with D'Angelo, just kind of looking at Wallace, saying it kind of like he was giving him a look like, man, I wish he wasn't a part of this.
Yeah, I mean, like, I like this scene a lot. It set up a lot without a whole bunch happening. I think up until this point, it's been like little breadcrumbs about Bodie and D'Angelo and the difference between those two and what it means. But this one was very blatant and obvious, or they stepped it up a little bit of a level, because literally, they went face to face at one point. But also when D'Angelo initially starts joking around or whatever he's saying, talking about Bodie, you see Bodie's face.
Yeah.
And looks directly at D'Angelo.
Yeah.
So the more Bodie kind of gets caught up in the grimy part of the game, the less he respects D'Angelo. And you can kind of see that in there, in particular in that scene that you're talking about, where Wallace is being a kid, and how dare we call him Wallace? That's Michael B. Jordan. I mean, come on now. How Wallace is over there, he's being a kid, but as we know, Bodie knows, then there's no time for that. Not now, not here. Pretty much not ever, but definitely not out in the open. And so Bodie reacts to it harshly, kind of like the harshness that D'Angelo should react with, but can't, because it's not in him. That's not a part of who he is. So the scene says a lot, and I really enjoyed it. But it's definitely now kind of like laying the groundwork for what will ultimately happen. But it's also, I think this is a great, just kind of like a foundational piece for like who is Bodie and what his character will be.
So you have the detail back in the office. They received the first page since they've been approved for the affidavit from to clone D'Angelo's pager. They receive that first page, and they find out that it's coded. So the numbers are not making any sense once they receive that page. And again, that just shows you just how organized and just how intricate the Barksdale organization is, and how careful they are for that. Yeah, you can clone a pager, you can clone our pager, but we're going to make sure that it's just not. You're going to have to do some more work, some dig deeper to make sense of it. What were your thoughts about that code?
I mean, to their credit, I mean, like, the reason that you create the code is not for somebody to break it, but for somebody to give up. So, to their credit, they only are used to law enforcement going to a certain level, right? And so
Right.
it's like they installed the code, and in other cases that would have been enough because people wouldn't even got to that point, honestly. And then getting to that point would have been able to figure it out, and then would have left it alone. Um, I think this also sets up the dynamic. Again, we're talking about now we're putting in the DNA of the show, the DNA of characters and the DNA of the show, and this is the DNA of the show. We come up against an organization that is more than traditional police work can handle, and so we have a special squad that will dig in deeper than that. And so like, these things are coming together. Of course, nobody knows how this is going to come together. We'll talk about Prez in a little bit. How just the parts are starting to come together. But that's this is the Barksdale crew is more intricate and more experienced at this than what the regular Baltimore Police Department can handle. And so this is the response that is needed in order to get there. And so you're starting to begin to see that.
Yeah, Stringer with D'Angelo in the pit. Stringer and Avon believe that there's a snitch in D'Angelo's crew. That's why some of the stuff that's been happening in the pit with Omar robbing them and cops jumping out. They fully believe that. Stringer gives D'Angelo a plan to kind of sniff out the snitch by not paying them, and whoever will come to D'Angelo begging, cross him off, and whoever doesn't come and still has money, Stringer wants to know about who that person is. What do you think about Stringer's approach?
Yeah, I mean, like, I go back and forth in my head of if they agree or if they actually think that there's a snitch in there. I think part of this is testing D'Angelo. That's kind of like what I believe. They don't care so much about the whatever's going on in the pit. It's not a major money making point for them. For Avon's, in my opinion, for Avon's perspective, can D'Angelo handle moving up the ladder? And then for Stringer's perspective, in my opinion, it is D'Angelo can't handle moving up the ladder the way that you want him to move. And so this is a test. This is not only a test for whoever in the pit, but this is more a test of D'Angelo and his ability to sense out what's going on. And then Stringer just gives him a blueprint on how to do it, and then he's going to see. They're going to be able to judge and more so Stringer is going to be able to judge his execution of how he did things. If the other stuff wouldn't happen at the end, then this will probably be more of a thing. But the Stringer's going to be distracted.
Yes.
In the coming episodes.
Yes, no question. You have McNulty, Kima, and you have McNulty and Kima watching Omar's truck, basically trying to get a feel of him, and they have a plan to where if they can catch him dirty, maybe he starts talking and what have you. And they're also talking about their CIs, and basically both of them are having a conversation about there's nothing good. There's not nothing good. There's nothing like having ears on the street. McNulty's, I forgot the name of the one McNulty mentioned, but he said you mentioned an old CI that just told him everything, and of course Kima agrees with that line of
He says he could see the streets like Omar could.
Like Omar, yes. So and Kima, of course, agrees with that in terms of that line of thinking, and one of the reasons why McNulty is McNulty, having a snitch or a CI of that ilk and that magnitude to feed him information. What were your thoughts on that conversation?
Yeah. All right. So we're just talking about the conversation.
Just conversation. No, not the.
All right. So so again, keeping in with the theme of just kind of like building, like this is now set up the DNA of the show. They say over and over again. I can't remember how many times they've said it up until this point. I think only a few times, but an officer is only as good as his confidential informant. So it's an essential piece to the process. Like this is not sometimes I can and can't do. Like in order to do the work that they are going to need to do, they need people who see the streets, i.e., like Omar sees the streets. And I think like that is not only the confidential informant that's important, but it's also the mentality of them. And I think that's what they're talking about more so as the snitch or seeing the streets like Omar is the analogy to how they need to also be approaching this job.
So two guys who don't seem to have no snitches, Herc and Carver, pick up Bodie, chase him down, basically make fun of him because he couldn't run as fast after the beat he took in the previous episode by, the 4 cops, including Kima. And this is just a polar opposite of McNulty and Kima. These guys pick him up. They get no information out of him. They can't even execute the good cop, bad cop, which Bodie sniffs out, quickly. And, Bodie basically gets a free sandwich and basically gets a free sandwich in a pool game. So I don't think this is a coincidence that these scenes were like right next to each other, considering he had one group of cops that fully believe or invested in CIs and getting information from the street versus 2 cops who just want to bang heads and end up with nothing.
Well, I mean, like the parallel is what the pit and what's going on here, right? Like not the pit, but what you're talking about with Stringer and Weebay at the very beginning. Avon and Weebay at the beginning. These guys at this point in time in their careers are blunt instruments. They're soldiers. Right. And in fact, Herc and Carver are soldiers. That's it. Just that's as far as they can see things. They right. see it. They see a perp or a kid or whatever, and they go and attack. It's just that simple. They're not even remotely thinking any type of investigative process because that's not something that has ever been taught to them. And so Keena and McNulty, particularly McNulty, who has years under his belt as being a detective, sees, for lack of a better expression, the entire field, or is at least trying to see the entire field in this investigation. And so, yeah, that's the 2 ways that I play that out. Just like Avon, and the difference between Avon and Weebay is the difference between McNulty and Kima and Herc and Carver.
And again, Bodie, of course, street smart absolutely gives them nothing. I mean, Bodie takes a beating, He takes a beating, gets a sandwich, and basically, basically says "F you" to them. I'm not giving you. I mean, what are you gonna do? So
it's about leverage. I mean, like they have no leverage on him. It's not even. This is not even a contest. He's just they're just blunt instruments. All they do is beat on people. That's not like they said in a couple episodes back, or maybe it was last episode. Not them, but McNulty said it, where he's like, Avon has more cachet in these streets than us. It's just that simple. Like they had no leverage on Bodie, so it wasn't even an issue or a concern or anything. He was just going to take that beating and keep it moving. And he's a juvenile.
Yes. So yeah, he can't.
So he had all the cards.
Yeah, he had all. Yeah. He can't get charged as an adult. Donette and D'Angelo in the restaurant. They go have dinner at this upscale restaurant, and D'Angelo's in there. Just Donette's she's relaxing, ready to eat. D'Angelo is just wondering about the surroundings, wondering what do people think about him, kind of like just seemingly lost. And the reason I wasn't going to pick this scene, I was going to skip over the scene, but I thought it was semi-important, showing D'Angelo just kind of like a man without a country. And that's why I thought it was important from that standpoint. It just further adds to he really doesn't know his place in this world, and he feels uncomfortable, outside, even out, and he feels uncomfortable, especially outside, his environment.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you didn't cut this out. I mean, this is another one of those scenes where honestly we could do an entire episode on this scene. I've been trying to hold myself accountable to just staying in the moment, but there was just no way I could not juxtapose this scene versus the scene in season 4 where the kids go to. I just couldn't. I could not take those two apart from each other. I tried, and so I won't go too much into that, but in terms of, in general, just the feeling of discomfort. In season 4, it's about the kids feeling discomfort in that restaurant because they're perceived a certain way. D'Angelo is actually laying the groundwork and the foundation. Like D'Angelo actually are those kids but he's already 10 toes into the game, not by his choice, but by his name. Which adds on to that discomfort in that restaurant. And so his girl is very much comfortable in there. Is trying to tell him, don't know I care about you. But as we've learned about D'Angelo, he internalizes everything. He's thinking about everything all the time and thinking deeply about everything, which is not necessarily a asset in what he's involved in, particularly if you're not thinking deeply about how to be better at selling product. So just wondering about the nature of things is not something that seems to be well valued in the Barksdale organization. And so, to your point, that's who D'Angelo is, and that is not the things that he is identifying with are not the things that's going to help him be a better drug dealer. And that, to your point, is man without a country.
Yes, without question. You have Avon Stringer in the club. They're upstairs, and Stinkum, and they find out. Avon tells Stringer, "Hey, we want to move in on some new territory. We're about get rid of this dude who's apparently one of the drug dealers, Scar. Let's give Stinkum the shot. He found it. Stinkum comes up. They let him know, hey, you're gonna get this shot. You're gonna get this shot to take over this territory. You're gonna be working for yourself. Get points on the package, and they give him a promotion. And then they find out Avon, and this is very key. This probably was the most important part of the scene. Avon gets gets a page from Weebay that they killed one of Omar's crew members, killed Bailey. one of Omar's crew members, and you know, he tells Stringer wasn't Omar, one of the youngins, and of course he's, you know, kind of semi-gloating about that. And then you have him go out there and make his money run with Stinker. What were your thoughts on the page and also, you know, them encroaching new territory?
Yeah. You know, Avon's always thinking about his empire and expanding and doing all the things that he needs to do to be the top guy. But at the same time, we know that the pagers, so dated, the pagers are going to become a big part in all of this. So probably the best move would have been for Avon to chill, but that's not in him. He's not going to chill. And also, again, nobody is anticipating that the police will push it this far. So Avon's making his moves, doing the things that he's doing, but also in making all these moves and doing the things that he's doing, that's the exact thing that the police are looking for at this moment.
So you say so what did you want him to chill on? Hunting down Omar, or?
I didn't want him to chill on anything. What would probably been best if they had knowledge that the police could do things like this would be to relax a little bit and not make so many aggressive moves. But you know, that he wasn't there. He didn't know. They didn't know. But anyways, that's kind of like what's going on with having the pager in that one scene as he's making all these moves. He's ultimately he's going to be the instrument of his own destruction, and that's just kind of like putting those two together.
So you have Bunk back at the police station. He finds out that that there are two more murders that were connected to the Deja Crescent murder from the last episode of Old Cases. Lasman, of course, attempts to takes credit for it. Then you have so you have that, and then you have Bunk and McNulty talk to one of the girl's friends named Tawana, who used to hang with the girl in the club. They talk about the fact that that the girl was about to tell on Avon to the police because he was about to break up with her. She was about to go to the police, write a letter to the state's attorney. And of course, they are, blown away by the fact that anybody would, that she would even think about threatening Avon Barksdale. But, she, that's what she did. And of course, they, immediately that connections, they already had made that connection with the gun cases. And he tells her about that. They tell her about that. And they find out in this scene that Avon owns a club. So I thought that was vital in terms of that scene more than anything. Them find out that he has more property outside the pit and what have you. So that was a big part of that scene. What were your thoughts?
Yeah. No, you nailed it. That was clutch. Because that was clutch. It just showed the extent of how deep Avon's money ran, particularly in Baltimore.
So you have not Avon. You have Orlando, of course, who's the front man in the bar, and D'Angelo in the club talking. And this is a very short scene. But it's short, but it's important because for some things to come, that these are probably two guys that probably shouldn't be coming up with a plan together. Orlando is the front man. It's not in the game. He's just the front. He's just a name. He's just a name on the club for the clean liquor license. You have D'Angelo, and this was initiated by Orlando, talking about D'Angelo, basically running his mouth about Stinkum getting promoted, and this kind of gets D'Angelo's wheels spinning a little bit. Short but important scene for things to come. What were your thoughts on the scene?
Yeah. I also wanted to add, like, it's, again, to me, this is part of the test of D'Angelo.
Right.
Stringer not only gave him the blueprint for how to deal with his peoples in the pit, but he also gave him the blueprint of how to not approach this, in terms of, if you feel like Orlando, his entire point is, I'm not getting any money.
Right.
I'm not getting the amount of money
Orlando
that
was
I'm supposed to be getting.
So
he's trying to feed, he's trying to gauge D'Angelo on how he's feeling on that. And then D'Angelo is kind of just like hearing la-di-da, like hearing the things, but instead of heeding Stringer's words, which is the one who comes to you and says, the one who comes and says, I'm struggling,
I want to hear
is the one who's okay, versus the one who starts making moves on their own and instead of eating by themselves, is the one you need to look at. Instead of, well, that should have been the lesson that D'Angelo has taken from there. But in this scene in particular, you can see D'Angelo kind of start leaning towards Orlando's way of thinking, especially when Orlando says Stinkum just got points on the package.
Which, by the way,
D'Angelo starts to feel some type of way.
Absolutely. Which, by the way, should have never came out of Orlando's mouth, even though he knows D'Angelo's in the game.
It's the internal politics of an organization. Orlando's trying to. I mean, we know where it's going to lead. Orlando's trying to fill D'Angelo out.
Yeah, no question. No,
Orlando wants to do more. He just wants to do more.
He wants more money. No, he wants more money. He understands. I mean, Orlando's smart enough to know who not to go to. Like, he's not going to Stringer. He's not going to.
No, of course not, because that's where the problem will lie.
He's not going to Weebay or Stinkum. So he knows, like, okay, Orlando can sense, maybe. I don't know. I don't quite know if D'Angelo's a weak link, but let me find out. So put a bookmark next to that for further episodes to come. So you have Daniels, McNulty, and Kima scoping out the club, and basically they're in the car together. And I think it was Freeman. Was Freeman in there? It was just Daniels, McNulty. No, Freeman wasn't there. It was Daniels, McNulty, and Kima.
Yeah.
Outside the club, Avon's place, and they're scoping it out. And basically they're running through all the properties and assets that Avon has. And you could see Daniel's eyes like, damn, might be in for the long haul. You could see that, like, Daniels is like, you could see Daniels looking like, damn, this is not gonna be cut and dry. And he, at this point, you kind of see that. And again, they're just going through the properties and going through, some of the stuff, the assets and things that Avon has. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, the case is getting deeper. And they're starting to outline all the different parts of it. Those are the three principles in the car, without Freeman being there, in terms of knowing what it takes to build a case. Not only get all the evidence, but also justify that with the court and with their superiors. And so, as the property stuff gets in there, you can all see their heads, the thoughts in their heads spinning and turning as they're starting to think about, like, all the different parts and pieces. And then when Freeman gets in there, he'll add that next piece to it. But that you can see them start to build that case and start to see exactly where this case can potentially go.
You have Omar and Brandon without Bailey, of course, no Bailey, leave without Bailey. At this point, they don't know that Bailey's dead at this point. So they leave without Bailey. You have Omar, then, Omar kisses Brandon. I think everybody knew even before that they were together. And then you just, basically Omar says, look, it's time to go. He says, I forgot what it exactly says. Early bird catches the worm, and he heads out with the shotguns, and they're armed, look like they're on, going on another hunt. Quick scene, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, set up. This is completely set up because we know what's going to happen at the end.
And Brandon,
it's showing how close their relationship is.
Yeah, and of course, and Brandon, I left out one small part. Brandon mentions when they're talking about Bailey. Brandon mentions that Bailey's a dope fiend. So I'm thinking maybe that has something to do with him getting killed. That he probably, I don't know, bought some dope and put it in, drew extra attention to himself.
I mean, he's out there, but Brandon is out there too. He gets caught in a different way.
Yeah.
The epigraph again.
A little slow, a little late.
Yep.
Prez McNulty in the detail. You have Prez who was making copies of the phone, of the telephone over the copy machine, and then Polk, of course, says, what the hell are you doing? In this detail, and Polk, of course, is drunk as a skunk. We came in with a bottle. And again, once no part of the detail, as we all know, known throughout the course of the season. And then Prez, for all his F-ups throughout the course of the series, finally does something right. He breaks the code using the phone, shows McNulty and Kima, and which absolutely was, vital to say the least. Breaking that code, and now they're able to identify, which will lead to them being able to do some things with that. I'm not going to mention it, of course, because that's further episodes. But now they know. Now they've cracked the code, and now they've can get the ball running with this. We're going deeper in this case. What were your thoughts about Prez breaking this code?
Yeah, I mean, like this is kind of the whole show, to be honest with you. Like this is the again, just the DNA of this show. I mean, just this is absolutely it. It shows, it adds the value of Prez, like why he will be important to us and why he will be important to this show for a variety of different reasons. So that's one piece, and then that's the whole part of that's the whole next level of The Wire. It's not good enough just to get the affidavit to then start listening to people, but then you have to understand what they're talking about in their language. And so like that's the next layer. This is the next piece, and where this unit will ultimately provide its value to the police department. But in this specific scene, this is about thinking deeper than a normal police officer would, and in particular, this is Pryzbylewski's value to the squad.
Yeah, he finally has his moment, and contrary to D'Angelo, who I spoke about earlier about a man without a country, now Prez has has found his place in the detail, which would be again vital moving forward. We go Avon, D'Angelo, Stinkum. They go to what seems like a halfway house where Avon's uncle's in. And Stinkum kindly drifts back. So it mainly ends up being D'Angelo and Avon. Of course, his uncle is laying like in the bed, with a gunshot head to the temple. It's basically a vegetable at this point. And Avon, tells D'Angelo, hey, you know, a little late, a little slow, and basically explains, you know, how dangerous what they're doing, how dangerous what they, you know, what they're doing with their profession that they've chosen, and what, you know, basically at any moment you can be taken out. And basically, and I got the sense that he was basically saying that it was inevitable that they were going to be taken out. Like you know, he says about his uncle, but not about his uncle, about his brother. You know, if he was dead, I could carry it, because you expect that. You expect that the way we were brought up. But you know, this is obviously seeing his brother in that state, just killing him, and it really humanized Avon. If it was possible to humanize a drug dealer and kingpin, because he mentions how fearful he is of looking at his uncle in that state. And D'Angelo mentioned earlier in the scene that, you know, he didn't want to be there. And Avon basically was like, yeah, I can understand why you don't want to be here. And earlier in the scene, he mentioned to Avon, he mentioned D'Angelo that he couldn't, his sister wanted him to put him in another place. And of course, careful and as organized as Avon is, Avon's like, no, can't do that, because we can't show this money like that. It'll draw too much attention. So the epigraph, a little slow, a little late. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a lot. It's an incredibly psychotically deep scene. So I'll keep this one fairly simple for me. It's duality. It's about the things. To me, it's about the things that we say and how we view the world. You know, on one end, exactly, Avon is coming in, he's talking about family, how family's it's all important and everything like that. And that kind of like gives like a little bit of an insight to the relationship with D'Angelo, and how he views D'Angelo and what that relationship dynamic looks like. But then immediately he's talking about, well, we can't do any of this money. We can't show any of this money, but you just got finished saying family's everything. But now you can't help your uncle out. And then he gets in there and he talks about how uncomfortable it is for D'Angelo to be there and that it should be family. But then he gets next to his uncle and he almost immediately starts to mock him, right? Like talking like you talking all that. So you used to talk all that stuff to me. And D'Angelo even reacts to it and feeling that discomfort. And so, you know, it absolutely sets up the epigraph. It absolutely is the kind of like the telling scene of the epigraph. You know, essentially exactly what he's saying is, you know, we all expect to get taken out. Like that's part of the game, but this is the worst part of the game where you're not dead, but you can't do anything. You're essentially a vegetable. And so, you know, that's an even worse nightmare for Avon than actually just being killed, which is to be expected. And again, this also then points also back to D'Angelo's discomfort with the entire enterprise, because he doesn't want to be dead, he doesn't want to be a vegetable, he doesn't want to be doing this. Essentially, he would like to be doing something else, but of course, he's there because of all of their names. And again, this is a family-run organization. And also what Avon is doing, oh man, like I said, this scene is so deep. Also what Avon is doing is subtly, but not too subtly, letting him know this is the expectation. Like, you're part of this. There isn't a choice in this matter. So whatever it is you're thinking in your head about other things you can do, take that out, because this is the best you're going to get is being laid up in a hospital bed up in here. So embrace this as best you can, and then get that bullet to the head whenever you get it.
Yeah, Wood Harris was brilliant in this scene. He gave you vulnerability. He gave you strength. He gave you, you know, cracking jokes with the uncle or mocking the uncle. I mean, just a tour de force masterclass of acting, of leading a scene. and commanding a scene. Like it really, even watching it as many times as I've seen it, I was like, it was just a phenomenal piece of acting by him. Everything you would want from an actor in a scene, conveying multiple emotions and, you know, facial expressions and what have you. It was tremendous in that scene. Yeah, he, you know, letting D'Angelo know, like, this is the game. There's no in between. There's no half measures, to steal a line from one of our other favorite shows. This is no, you can't, no half measures in this game. And you could tell D'Angelo, again, looking like, hey, like, you, to your point, I really don't want any part of this. That's what his body language said, and his eyes said, I really don't. Both tremendous acting performances in that scene, because D'Angelo was the polar opposite. He's like, I don't want any part of this shit right here. That's what his eyes told you. So you had, now you have Omar, Brandon, McNulty, and Kima. McNulty and Kima are following Omar. They've been on his truck seemingly for the past week. They followed a van, not truck, but they followed a van to a cemetery, and they find out that, you know, basically Omar's has been, you know, tracking them, so to speak, casing them. Omar had no weapons. Basically said, listen, as long as y'all been on my van, I might as well just come straight out. He's like, I'm not going back to jail. Y'all not putting a charge on me. They have a conversation about the Barksdales and Kima. A couple things come out of this. Number two important pieces. Omar, well, they tell him about Bailey. They tell him that somebody shot Bailey, and Omar basically, you know, a lot of enemies. Really wasn't surprised at all. And he tells them as they're walking away that Bird killed William Gant. Of course, Gant was the working man that got shot at the end of episode 1. So those two pieces, in particular the Gant part of it, was probably, to me, the vital part of that scene. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, this is another DNA scene. I mean, like, this sets up like who Omar is. At this point in time, Kima and McNulty are kind of like coming at him how they would come at anybody in the game. And you know, he sets it up in a couple different ways in terms of, you know, hey, I saw y'all coming way before that. So there was never ever going to be any weapons or anything you could put a charge on me, because I knew it ahead of the time. And the more important thing to me is when McNulty says to him, you know, you being out here without a weapon, that's kind of dangerous for a guy that's in the occupation that you do. And of course, he kind of like he starts to put into words what we're going to find out about Omar over the course of the series is, you know, my name carries its weight. And the way that he said it, and I'm paraphrasing, was something in this episode was like, you know, sometimes your name is all that you need.
Yeah.
And so that's a DNA moment. That's setting up who Omar is. That's setting up who we're gonna come to know him as, and the why he makes the moves that he makes. And then to your point, like the Gant piece, like we know how important that is going to be in the future. But just in general, you know, Omar says, you know, snitching's not me, but then he lays this piece of information out. Now, I was going to say, like, in one instance, it might seem like, oh, that's hypocritical, but I think McNulty and particularly McNulty, I don't think Greg was paying, or she wasn't involved in this as much. It's like, yeah, snitching is not him. And in specific, it's kind of like the thing that I always have with the kids about like what snitching is and what it isn't. But on this part in terms of the show, what it's saying is I would never ever just come to the police and just do something just to do it. So if I'm dropping this name and I'm dropping this thing, you better believe it's important. It means something, and we'll find out very shortly what it means and why it means the thing that it does, particularly in pertains of Barksdale.
Yeah, a couple things. One, and he also knew that Bubbles was their snitch, so he's on top of their whole operation. Like he's like, yeah, Bubbles knows Bird. That's what he said. That's what he says.
Yeah.
I thought about when he said, when you had that back to back. I'm not a snitch.
Right.
So I don't believe that's a part of the game. Then he goes and tells on Bird.
Right.
About that, and I was like, yeah, semi-hypocritical, but also Bird killing a working man breaks his code.
A man's got to have a code. Yep.
And yes. So that's what
DNA. We don't know all of this yet, but they're laying the foundations for it.
Yeah. So that was what that was all about. Before we get to Freeman and Daniels, you had a scene which I didn't put on the format, but there was a scene which I should mention in the bar with D'Angelo. It wasn't, Orlando was there, but of course, but D'Angelo and Charlene, who's the stripper, they're at the bar. Another customer gets into an argument with the bartender. He says, he claims that she didn't. He paid money. She says she didn't. He didn't. And he's been buying Charlene drinks, and then she pays for, they kick him out, but she gives him $20 back. D'Angelo's witnessing all this. He sees it, then gives her the money, even though she claims that, the dude was basically full of it. And then they hook up and, they connect and what have you. So that I couldn't, even though I skipped over that, couldn't leave that part considering what's going to take place in the future. Couldn't leave that out, that they're in, they're not in a relationship now, but they're, connected at this point with in terms of with that scene.
Yeah, and a big part of their connection is that they're kindred spirits in terms of they're both in a game that they don't necessarily enjoy.
Yeah.
And so I think the important part of her giving that $20 is not if she's guilty or if she isn't guilty. She's not guilty, by the way. But if she's guilty or isn't she guilty, it's just the fact that no other girl in that bar, from D'Angelo's perspective, would have even thought to do that, regardless of if they had done it or not. And I'm sure in his mind's eye, most of them would have done it, and then of course would have never ever given the money back. So it's like, why did she do that? And like that is kind of like in terms of like mimicking like D'Angelo's thinking, operating in his game. Is like, why do we do the things that we do?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So we go to the detail in the office. Freeman and Daniels. Freeman comes into Daniels' office, tells Daniels that they were late. Again, a little slow, a little late. They were late on the wire in terms of the payphones in the pit, and which is important because they missed the call that they missed the call when Weebay paged Avon about killing Bailey. So you had that going on. Talk about, what do you think? Do you think that besides, again, the information that what Freeman said to Daniels was clear cut? It was straightforward. But do you think there was an underlying message that Freeman was trying to send as well to Daniels with that conversation?
No. I think that the scene, I mean, it's a setup in terms of, so yes, the underlying message will be set up by the scene at the end of the consequences of them being late. And so I think that's kind of like the drumbeat that's happening in there?
So you have Wallace and Poot spot Brandon at a game room playing pinball on the pinball machine, excuse me. And then they page D'Angelo. They page D'Angelo. D'Angelo then pages Stringer. Stringer calls D'Angelo, and D'Angelo, gives him the spot. They drive up to the spot. Weebay, Stringer, and before they drove to the spot, they were joking whether or not D'Angelo got robbed again. So they, again, back to your point with Stringer and D'Angelo, he clearly doesn't take D'Angelo seriously. So they drive to the spot, to the game spot, the Greeks, they called it, and Wallace comes out. Wallace and Poot come out, spot, and they spot Stringer. He lets Stringer know that that Brandon's in there, and of course Weebay has the handcuffs ready, and and then you see all of those calls, those pages, and those phone calls were all those pages were go back to the detail. And again, they got the pages in terms of D'Angelo, but they missed the phone calls from Stringer when Stringer was on the phone with D'Angelo. So that, again, that cost them, going back to the epigraph, a little late, a little slow, a little late. If they had been on the phones, they would have got the calls. They would have got multiple calls. They would have got the Weebay, the Weebay Avon with that page, and they would have got of course Stringer and D'Angelo. And of course that, that leads on to next episode when they have the ramifications of what happened. But they get Brandon. They of course get Brandon, and that's how the episode ends. What were your thoughts on those kind of combined scenes with the with all that going down, and then showing the detail and all and the pages going off in the office?
Yeah, this is again, this will be a theme all throughout The Wire. This is setting it up. This is a DNA moment again. Given, even with all of the expertise, or with all the emerging expertise, I'll say at this moment, and then ultimately all the expertise that will be put around details like this, because there's so many factors that are going into how to run these investigations, they're slow. They will just naturally always be behind the 8 ball. That's looking a little bit into the future. But in this particular circumstance, they're absolutely behind. Not behind the 8 ball. They'll absolutely be too slow. And so this is absolutely showing painful, like point by point, how all the politics, we have to spend 3 weeks convincing Daniels of this and 1 week of writing this, and then we gotta get like all the stuff that has to happen for appropriate investigation, and then all the stuff that happens because of politics in the police department, how they will continuously be behind the people that they're chasing. That's one. The second part of it is the scene where Weebay's twirling the handcuffs in the car is setting up something that we know will happen, but it's ultimately another level or another example of how they're going to be the engineers of their own destruction, because they're going to bring, because of Avon's edict to them. Weebay's definitely not doing anything that wasn't suggested to him or told to him, but because of Avon's edict, then Weebay does what he does, and because Weebay does what he does, that unleashes Omar's wrath, and that unleashes the intensity of the police department, and that will also destabilize the pit, which will create a whole bunch of other different things. So anyways, the twirl of that handcuffs, I really noticed it this time. I was like, yeah, this bad things are in the future because of what you're about to do. And then the second part is just the vicious. The third part is just the viciousness and the ruthlessness of, you know, what everybody's about, but also how casual it can be. You know, they literally are about to kill one dude until they get the pager, and it's like, all right, no, now we need to go and kill Omar's boy. They're about to go get Scar, highlight Scar, you know, whatever, but Scar's gonna go down. Anyways, so they're going from one, you know, act to the next act, and that's kind of like also what I was talking about in terms of like slowing down and pausing and seeing the lay of the land. So it just also just kind of like shows just kind of the efficient ruthlessness of Barksdale, the Barksdale crew at this point.
Yeah, they were making a lot of moves throughout the course.
They don't try to make a lot of moves.
They were attempting to make a lot of moves
Mm-hmm.
throughout the course of the episode. Attempting, that's a better description of it. Kind of surprised, even watching it now for like the 1000th time, that after they heard, first of all, like in terms of Omar, you robbed Barksdale. Okay, so you're hot right now, without question. You and one of your dudes has gotten blown up. Kind of surprised that Brandon was by himself.
He'll talk about, like, this one I remember very well. He'll talk about it next episode.
Yeah, we'll say, yeah. I'm gonna say that. Say that. But when I first initially, I was even surprised when I first initially saw it. I was like, ooh, But a little surprised by, you know, considering everything that led up to that. But yeah, that would definitely get answered. And of course, you had Wallace getting introduced to Stringer for the first time. So you had to keep that, put a bookmark next to that. New characters in the show, we get introduced to Bird, Phaedra, Onyx, of course, and we'll see a lot of him moving forward, but they give him an introduction. It was hard with this MVP, I'll be honest with you. I could go Prez, but I had to go Avon for that one scene.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going Prez with Lucy.
Okay.
Like that.
You did? No, I understand.
That's where I go.
No.
You know, and I mean, like, you know, Avon is Avon. Avon can be the MVP for pretty much most of the season because he's in so many scenes. So for this episode specifically, because this is where Prez announces his importance.
Yes.
Because up until this point in time, he's just been a reject and a mess up, like guy's name I don't have to remember because he's never going to be back soon. The drunk.
Polk.
Sure. So but Prez announces his importance. And so like that to me is the MVP moment.
Yeah, and it was a funny moment. Your man had a line too. Bubbles had a nice line. He said, "I don't see how y'all do what y'all do every day and not want to get high." that was Bubbles. Yes, doing Bubbles. Yeah, I thought, you know, again, excellent episode. A little late, a little slow. That resonated, of course, throughout. A little slow, a little late. That resonated throughout, of course, the entire episode, seemingly over with this episode, and a lot of, you know, some payoff. And again, the thing about The Wire, it always, you know, you get some payoff, but it always is throwing setup at you. It's always throwing setup at you, and that's the one thing that they are brilliant at, balancing payoff with setup. So you got, you know, a number of things that are going to be happening, definitely moving forward. So I think we covered everything with that. With, you know, episode 5. What's that? Yeah, the pager. Episode 6 will be The Wire, ironically, and then again things will take a whole nother level with this next episode. I'm looking forward to this next episode. Like I said, we go to an extreme level with the ramifications of the Barksdale's actions. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, no, good. I mean, good. It only gets better from, this is, like you said, it's the perfect thing about The Wire. It just only gets better. Just keeps getting better. Every episode, getting better and better.
No question about it. As always, I want to thanks to Rob Sapp for joining me. We're looking forward to the next episode. Enjoy the rest of your evening, sir. Enjoy the Jordan documentary.
All right. You be healthy, be safe. Talk to you later.
No problem. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast, The Wire Remix. Of course, as always, thanks to Rob Sapp for joining us. We have, I have a number of podcasts coming this week. I'm going to do a draft podcast tomorrow. Be looking back at the draft. I definitely have some thoughts on Aaron Rodgers. You heard the NBA talking about reopening facilities and practice facilities in certain spots. We are talking about that. And of course, we will continue our Bulls Michael Jordan Classics series. I haven't decided which game I'm gonna do. Haven't made that decision. Listen, it'll be a playoff game. It's gonna be a playoff game. It'll definitely be a playoff game when it's early. Maybe I'll do maybe a Pistons game or maybe Cleveland 89. I don't know yet. You'll find out. Keep you posted. This episode, of course, will be on. This episode will be on my YouTube page, Stitcher, iTunes, and a number of those other platforms before the night is over. Definitely by iTunes by tomorrow morning, and on YouTube by 12 a.m. midnight tonight. So be on the lookout for that. As always, this is the Real Deal Podcast, Season 12. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm out.